First of all, let me welcome you to the Q3 2020 Homelessness Panel meeting, the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists. I'm very pleased to say that this month we're joined by Amy-Kathleen Walker and James Rowley from Missing People. They're going to tell us a bit about the charity and a bit about the interesting use of technology in their area. So can I hand over to you guys, to Amy-Kathleen and James?
Of course. Thank you so much for your warm welcome and for having us at your meeting. Also, apologies, I live on a very busy main road, so if anyone gets any extra sound effects from various blue light agencies, my apologies in advance. So I'm going to go through a bit of information around the charity Missing People, who we are, what we do, and some of the great things that we're doing with tech, especially around homelessness. And I'm also joined by my colleague James, who's going to give you more in-depth information around the Find Safe system and its awesomeness. So just to set you up there, James, to make sure that you can crack on really well. So a little bit about Missing People. I'm not sure, James, actually, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. And James is also going to be my fabulous, glamorous assistant. So as you can see, the slide is quite busy, but I'll sort of talk through a little bit about the history of the charity. So we are the oldest and currently the only UK charity who has an emphasis on ensuring that we are there to support those who have a missing loved one and also those who are also missing. So i.e. someone is currently in a lobby if someone wants to let them in. Yeah, so we're here to provide support for those who are away from home and those who are worried about them, along with providing support, advice and training for agencies who are trying to be there to ensure that every missing person is ideally found safe, whether that's police, social services, etc. We, as I said, we're the only UK charity who have an emphasis on this. There's over 180,000 children and adults who go missing each year. Many of them are more than once. To break that down to a more tangible statistic, that means that every 90 seconds, someone is reported missing. So if someone was to get out their calculator at the end of this meeting, you can work out exactly how many people were reported missing during this hour while we've been talking about it. And that in and of itself will probably be quite shocking. A big part of what we do for those who are away from home and those who are missing them is we reconnect them in crisis, and we try to help prevent further disappearances. We do this with lots of technical things, some of which are very simple, such as our TechSafe system, and then ensuring that they are connected to our helpline via a variety of different means, whether it's phone, text, email, chat, etc., to make sure that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, and no matter how you need support, that we are that lifeline and that we're there 24 hours a day for missing adults and children. Currently, our web chat is only for children, but we'll talk about that later. For families, there's all sorts of things that we offer. You can never undervalue the importance of being there and giving someone space to listen, the emotional support. Having someone missing is referred to as living in limbo. So that means that you have no control. You are in an exclusive club that no one wants to be in, and you have no way of stopping it, of ending it, until you find out what's happened to your missing loved one. And that's something that most people actually have no control over. It's either up to that person to get in touch or be returned, or for investigative forces, whether it's the police, etc., to try and find them and try and help them be safe. So while you're living in that limbo and that really difficult situation, we have trained professionals and volunteers who can support you through that, whether it's a space to just talk, whether it's peer-to-peer support, such as on our online forum or in our online social groups. We also have a bespoke counselling service. We are the only specialist counselling service in the UK who have the level of expertise in missing that we do. And so we have counsellors that we've actually trained ourselves. All of this thing, every single thing that we provide is free. At point of reaching out to us, everything we do is free, because the worst thing in the world for us would be thinking that there is someone who is stuck in this situation who then couldn't afford to access us. So it's really important that everything that we do, our helpline, everything is as accessible as possible, and that it's free to call, text, email, etc. James, if you could go to the next slide. So that's a little bit of an update on, sorry, a little bit of an intro on who we are, and it is a whistle-stop tour. I would suggest that you all have a look at our website, especially around November when the very new fancy website is actually going to be up and running, to get a lot more information on who we are. So we are aware that a lot of people, either as a result of being missing or whilst they're missing, end up being homeless. So it could be temporary, just overnight, or it could actually be an entrenched issue. And this was something that we realized was an ongoing issue. We created a relationship with agencies in Westminster years ago called the Westminster Protocol. It was a book that was about this big, and I'm not even joking, of statutory guidance and things that we could do to try and connect with agencies within the Westminster area, because we knew that had a high population of people who were homeless, either heading to it or already in the area. So we kind of took that learning and realized that there is something so much better that we could be doing, that we could be connecting agencies in a much more efficient way. That, you know, it was actually, I'm going to let James talk through the years when this particularly started. But we knew that there was a way of doing this with tech that would be faster, simpler, smoother, and more effective. And so with the support of the Mayor of London funding and in partnership with Chain, which is a network that's currently operated by St Mungo's homelessness charity, we developed Find Safe, which I'm going to let James, I think we're now on number 4. Is this your intro, James?
Yeah, let me just understand why this
is a really good time for the screen to freeze.
Oh no, it's because the cursor wasn't on the web page.
Okay.
Okay, so we got together with Chain, which is the rough sleeping database, which is funded by the Mayor of London, and we put a proposal into the Mayor's rough sleeping database in 2017 or 18, I can't even remember, and they very kindly decided to fund us. And the proposal was for a system which simply matches our data with data in other people's databases. And it's a very simple concept. And we had prototyped it using some data from Chain, using Excel, and we knew we would find people. So it was then a matter of making an operational system with some funding from the Mayor. And we went live on the 1st of April last year, and it is indeed finding people. We can talk about that in more detail. How does it work operationally? Basically, somebody reports somebody missing, John in this case, his sister reports him missing. The police, as they normally do, asks us to help find John, especially if they consider him to be vulnerable. And then we upload his name and date of birth and any aliases he uses to the Find Safe web-based program. And the next thing that happens is that Chain, every day, it uploads all its current clients to see if any are missing persons. And in this little example, John is a Chain client. That is, he's been registered on the Chain database as a rough sleeper, and he's matched by Find Safe. And then Find Safe tells Chain with a missing person flag to mark the Chain record that the guy's a missing person. Then when the worker next sees John's record, he sees a missing person flag. He is alerted to it in certain circumstances. And then the worker comes across John and says, "You've been reported missing. You contact missing people, they'll explore your options," etc., etc. At which point John knows he's been reported missing. He knows how to find out who's looking for him, how to stop people looking for him if he wants, which is quite reasonable. And the missing people can help him if he wants, and he could reconnect if he wanted to. And he could contact us. So it's a very simple process which aims to be extremely confidential. We don't know, well, I think we'll come on to this a little bit in a moment. I'll just talk about how it works. Actually, I'm going to, I'm just going to go back and just say we don't know anything. So as the searcher that's missing people, we don't know that John has been found or contacted until he gets in touch with us. As it says in the bottom's right, it's his choice because it's entirely confidential to him where he is, and he can come to us. He can actually report himself to the police. It's only him and the outreach worker knows anything about it, and that's a very important principle for the operation of the whole thing. So how it works, basically there is a web-based application called FindSafe with a searcher database in it, into which we put our name, date of birth, and an optional photograph. The arrows are important because that shows that we don't receive anything back. We do receive, as administrators of the tool, a count of the matches and a few little parameters of the matches, scores and fuzzy scores and so forth, but we don't receive anything else. Meanwhile, the chain database every night will upload all its current people, names, aliases, date of birth, and every night its records are updated with a match flag. If we have removed somebody from the database because they've been found, then their match flag would be suitably reset. We've only been working with chains so far, but we do want to get other rough sleeping databases or hostile databases involved. That's really important because the whole thing has been designed to be fully automatic and completely scalable. There is hardly any effort involved by anybody in this now, because the only people doing any work, if you like, are the rough sleeping outreach workers, who occasionally, because we're not talking about big numbers. You never talk about big numbers when you're searching, when you're trying to find people, who occasionally will approach somebody who's a missing person. So it's hardly any work at all. Other homelessness databases, other rough sleeping databases, other local authority databases. There's local authorities have responsibility for homeless, rough sleeping, and homelessness these days, the Homelessness Act of 2017, I think, and so they are interested as well. And I can talk about those two databases later. And on the searcher side, there's the Family Tracing Service of the International Red Cross. They are actually doing something very similar to this. I visited them in June 2018, and they were very excited, and I got very excited, but actually their situation is quite different from us, and I think they're off doing their own thing now. Salvation Army have a family tracing service. Organisations for ex-prisoners may also be interested, and organisations for ex-soldiers, and unclaimed financial benefits. This is something that is potentially very interesting, but very difficult to get any interest from people, because pensions being the obvious one, so many unclaimed pensions, billions and billions of pounds worth of unclaimed pensions, and I'm sure that a lot of people who are down on their luck have forgotten that they've got pensions, and however easy you make it for them to look up that they've got a pension, you know, it still requires a certain amount of proaction, and very often the people who've been through the mill aren't really up to that. And if a pension company were able to just put their names and dates of birth up there, then people could be told, for example, a local authority who's been housing somebody for a while could actually say, oh, did you know you could have a pension that you've forgotten about? Why don't you just ring this number with this reference? And it could be a really interesting thing to do. That's essentially how it works. And again, all the people on the right are not told that anybody has been found. It's up to the individual themselves to reveal themselves to the people on the right and to make that contact. And there's also the possibility of, well, the police already, of course, do send their referrals to us. So I've spoken about confidentiality, but the data protection is fully designed in. I've got a data protection privacy impact assessment, which is 30-something pages long. We really went to town on that, but it's very thorough. So once a day, Data Checker uploads everything fully automatically. The uploaded data, the chain data, is forgotten immediately matching is done. It's not stored. So if you like, the attack surface is reduced because there's that data is not stored. And so I've referred to it as an electronic glance because it can be compared to people looking at posters. The tool doesn't initialize any communication, it only responds to the data checkers uploading. Searchers are told nothing, as I've said. It's a private website online with no visible pages, it's just a program up there. And obviously it's as secure as we can reasonably make it. The legal basis for processing in terms of data protection is up to the uploading party. And again, in the data protection impact assessment, I provided lots of suggestions as to how people can justify what they're doing. Special category data is not used at all, so it's just name, date of birth and aliases. Data checkers can choose which searchers to match their data with. So, for example, it could be that a particular homelessness hostel doesn't want to check with one of our searchers on the right-hand side. He can choose that, and we can set it up in configuration. And it's actually it applies in reverse as well. So searchers might not wish to check their data, have their data checked by a particular data checker. And they can all provide their own advice to their own workers, or they can use the searcher's advice. So at the moment, we have there's a link in every missing person's record on chain that points to, so that the worker can just basically go to the relevant page on our website to access our advice. And that's very important because they won't do it very often. We did have a big training thing funded by the mayor, but really it's about making sure the advice is there, because most of the people who are trained won't have had to do anything about this, and they'll all have been forgotten. Data checkers and searchers are the data controllers. Missing people as the system administrator is just a data processor. And I've got this generic data privacy impact assessment, as I've mentioned. And the idea is that everybody who wants to be a data checker or a searcher will be able to use that impact assessment in their own impact assessment and just help them produce that as easily as possible. Results so far. This was for the first 9 months. We had to publish a monitoring and evaluation report for the full 12 months. This presentation was prepared just before lockdown when we were going to meet with you then. I haven't bothered to update the figures, they're not terribly different. So basically, we achieved 95 matches in that time. 43 of those were matched at launch. That's because since launch. So there were 52 on day one, because of course Chain was uploading a lot of historical records. And at that time we had 19 actions taken by outreach workers, 15 confirmed matches, 5 said they'd already been found, 4 were confirmed not to be a match. All those 4 were people whose date of birth didn't perfectly match. So one thing we have learned is that we could save ourselves a tiny bit of trouble and just insist on dates of birth being perfect matches. 7 people were approached and reported by police as having been found later. So we could say that in that time, 5 people were found by the system before, and the system had something to do with it. We don't know that, because we don't know whether the police found them later some other way. We don't really know. We don't know whether the outreach worker approached the police. We don't know whether the people themselves approached the police. So we don't know, but it won't. It could have helped. I mean, and then that's the same with most of our publicity. We don't really know whether it's made much difference. It's very difficult to be. It's like all publicity. You don't really know how effective it is. So one of the questions people should quite reasonably ask if they wanted to get involved: what's in it for the parties? Well, the missing person themselves could receive extra support and reconnection. The data checkers, that's people like Chain and hostels, could reconnect, possibly release their own resources, and by getting people to reconcile themselves and go home maybe. And the other thing that's in it is that other searchers could meet their charitable aims. I think if the police gave us more information, and we could help find an awful lot of old cases for them in the future, but that's not maybe particularly urgent. So the way ahead, at the moment, our priority is the is our digital transformation project that you're so kindly helping fund, and we need to make sure that the FindSafe is linked with the integrated case management system, which is part of that digital transformation program. And at the moment, I'm not sure whether it will be. It depends on funding. I had to actually do a bit of horse trading with the budget to make sure for the ICM. At the moment, it's not in the scope of the current deliverable, but I'm hoping that somehow we will get some money so that we can integrate it with the new system. We need to build those partnerships and expand the network. And the Inform database, that is a database that has 170 different installations amongst homeless hostels and all the rest of it around the country, 70 of whom are in London. And the NPSS housing jigsaw system has got lots and lots and lots of local authorities doing their homelessness management on their system, and that includes 20 in London. I mention London because these are the figures that I've just reminded the Mayor of London himself about in our final monitoring evaluation report that we sent last week. And then we do need to make sure FindSafe is financially sustainable through sponsorship and subscriptions. I think sponsorship is definitely the preferred way, because we don't want to put off data checkers or data searchers by asking them for subscriptions, because the numbers involved are not huge, and they might just say, well, we're not going to pay for that. That's fair enough. But the beauty of the system is, once it's set up, the costs are negligible, hardly anything to keep it going. And the expansion, if we get those two databases building, then that's fine. That's building things on the left-hand side, on the data checker side. We also need to build things on the right-hand side. Otherwise, you can keep adding partnerships, but they're still all just looking at missing people, 750 missing individuals. So it's we've got to build it on both sides in a balanced way. So that's the extremely simple FindSafe concept and project reported there up until almost the end of the pilot year, and it's still running. No one's switched anything off, but we do need to integrate it with the ICM, which will be going live, we think, next spring, but it will be. So that's it. That's my talk.
Lovely.
Thank you, James. Sorry, can I just add a bit of colouring to that, because on purpose I didn't tell you all about what we would do if John gets in touch, because I wanted you to focus more on the tech of how we would try and reach John. And James, yes, you are right. It is now really simple, but as you also alluded to, it's an exceptionally impressive PIA. Every single conceivable thing that someone could have a concern about has been thought through thoroughly. So if John then does call into the charity, or texts or emails, what he's going to get is an exclusive space for him to talk through what's actually happening for him around his being missing. And the reason why this is simple but so amazing is when you're an outreach worker, and I have the privilege that I was one years ago before coming to Missing People, that it takes so much work to try and build that relationship and that trust with that person, because who are you? You've just walked into their life and you're paid to care. So everything you do is to try and reach out to that person and work with them and do what's best for them. But your focus ultimately is making them safe and to end their rough sleeping. That's what you're paid to do as an outreach worker. And so then trying to bring conversations around missing, such as, oh, do you know, the police might be looking for you, or your family are looking for you, that can really knock a relationship. It can also be a great building block. So by having us involved, it means that that outreach worker can make that informed decision, what's best for John, working with John. And quite often they'll give John our details and he will then make the decision, do I want to call Missing People or not? We're entirely confidential. So if he does call us, we don't know who he is. He could just call and say, well, what do you do? And hang up on us. And that's fine. It's obviously a bit more difficult to hang up on your outreach worker if you're physically sat with them. So it's a beautiful, amazing relationship that is simple. It's simple because it's being provided by two agencies who care and who have joined aims and ethos of trying to support people out of rough sleeping, and in our case to make sure every missing person is found safe. So it's reasons that marry totally. And the things that we can do to try and help John are, you know, talk through what's gone on for him. Is he safe? Is there anyone else that he wants to be put in touch with? We have the opportunity to offer three-way calls to call home or call a care worker, maybe liaise with their mental health team. If it's out of hours and their outreach worker's not around, we are 24/7 outreach workers. Although they operate 24 hours a day, their outreach worker might not be available at that point. So yeah, it's an amazing system, and I just wanted to, on purpose, I did that. I didn't add it at the beginning, just so that you would be able to focus on how we get to John. And it's simple. It seems simple on the face of it because it's been worked through really well. Just to give James the kudos that he deserves for designing this project and not giving up on it. This was your brainchild nearly a decade ago, and you didn't give up on it because you knew that it could be great, and it has been great. And I know the numbers are not huge, but every single missing person deserves that chance. Every single family member deserves a space to be reconnected with their loved one. And the fact that we can do this with tech is amazing. So sorry, I'll now hand you back over to, I think it was Jason who I spoke over. My apologies.
Not at all, not at all. Thank you very much to both of you for that. I mean, for us as a panel, we're always here for anybody in the sector that has a technology question or need, or needs directing, and that so often means a generic issue. The example I always use is the Wi-Fi is rubbish in our office. What can we do about it? So everybody suffers from that problem. And don't get me wrong, we're more than happy to help people with that. And it's just a coincidence that maybe the connection was because they're in this sector. What as technologists gets us really excited is when you have an innovative use of technology to address a specific question. So, and that's why the Worshipful Company is so impressed with what you've done. The simplicity in one way it hides the complexity of actually delivering on that solution. I don't underestimate the effort put into, as Amy elegantly put around the making sure you've thought of all the angles around this. So thank you. As technologists, we applaud you, and we love the idea. If I understood Amy correctly, with the 90 seconds during this hour, then it's 40 people. So 40 people will have been reported missing, which is a horrible stat, isn't it? That really is the kind of thing that brings it to life for you. So, as any family member can think, if it was one of your loved ones that was in that, you don't care about what the numbers are. If there's any chance that you could be helped in reconnecting, then it's going to be worthwhile, isn't it? So thank you very much. I'm going to open it up. I see Annette's put a hand up, and therefore, because she's using the tech in the way it's designed to be used, I will I will allow her to jump in there. So Annette is actually from Missing People, aren't you, Annette?
Yes. It's not a trick planted question, I have to say.
Okay.
I just wanted to join as the third of the terrible threesome, as it were. One of the things that I wanted to ask James to go back to was a slide that we'd also prepared on the impact, actually, that of the work that we do. So, James, can I take you back to slide 3, which we whipped over?
I thought there was, yes, I thought suddenly went from one. Yeah, 1 of 2. I don't know where 2 of 2's gone.
Well, I can share my own version of that if you wish, because I've got something that actually shows us what the impact is, if that's helpful. Would that be
or
right?
I've also got it.
Share my screen.
Okay, I hope I can then get it onto the right page for me. Come on, tech, we can do this. Yes, we can. Hold on.
In the meantime, whilst Annette's doing that, if anybody else wants to put their virtual hand up if they have a question, we can swiftly then move from Annette into somebody else. Okay, good stuff. Right, Annette, sorry, back to you.
If only I could get this page to show. This is most irritating.
Martin got a question.
Yes, Martin.
Talk amongst yourselves.
So it was interesting hearing about the searches and doing it on name and date of birth, and that's a classic way of identifying people. Certainly the NHS, where the surgery I go to, always seems to ask those, and it gets me service. But I just wondered whether there was any sort of exploration of more fuzzy searches, you know, sort of people maybe not remembering that some key details correctly, or someone perhaps misspelling a surname or something like that, if it was a friend perhaps.
The searches are fuzzy, and I basically nabbed some free software from a university in the in Australia, and implemented that so in longhand. So it's all because I wanted the software to belong to us. I didn't want anybody else to have their fingers on it, really. And so it is fuzzy searching. It's fuzzy searching that does character comparisons on the string, but it also does fuzzy searching based on the frequency of a name. So you get a lower score if you've got a name of an unusual name, sorry, a relatively common name, and a higher score if you've got an unusual name. And first name and second name. And it also, because of the aliases, it will compare people. It will take into account the fact that people are using an alias as well, and right. And there are thresholds for the scoring. So there's a high, very high, medium sort of score thresholds decided, which is quite a lot of work at the time to just sort of sort those out, because there's a certain amount of wet finger at that point.
Gosh, it sounds like a lot of complexity in there. Thank you, James.
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay, Annette, did you want to just quickly talk to the slide?
Yes, and actually to join in with Amy on this, really, I think it's really important to see how, whilst the numbers may seem small from FindSafe, what we're trying to do through, we're thinking digital first as we go forward with our digital transformation. And as James said, WCIT, of course, have actually been the pivot of us being able to move forward and start our digital transformation with being the happy recipient of one of the 2 grants 2 years ago from the WCIT Charity Award alongside CALM. So thank you, a huge thank you from us. Sadly, at the time, FindSafe wasn't part and parcel of that grant, which is why it's fantastic for James and Amy really to be presenting this as another innovation. But what is it that we strive for when we're looking at ways to reach people? It's to help, it's to make an impact, as Amy says. It's about people first, and then think about how we do it. So look at how we do it. We actually have a very small number of staff, and the number of volunteers you see there represent our active volunteers, but we've had hundreds in the past. But you can see we've reached 149, almost 150,000 people through our range of services. That's reach. And a lot of that has been now through to extending our reach through digital work. As Amy said, it's everything from tech safe or one-to-one chat, emails and the such like, and now with Find Safe coming in, and also with the start of our pilot Is This OK project, for which WCIT are now providing the tech for the second stage of the pilot as of now. But we've helped 10,500 people last year with that emotional and practical support. And obviously that is just a small number of people who go missing. We talked about the numbers already. So it is really important that we think broadly about how we reach more and help for more. And then, as you can see, we found just over 2,000 missing people last year. Amy talked very movingly, actually, about the work that we do with families, and she's been very much part of that, haven't you, Amy? I think it's amazing that 2/3 of the families we support say that we've helped find their loved one. And actually, since lockdown, our family support manager has run an online virtual support group every week to actually bring together families who have really felt that loss of connection, but through virtual support, online support, through tech, they've been able to feel more connected to us. And as you can see from the survey, albeit last year, 96% of the families we support say they would recommend us. And Amy recently helped to spearhead a family support weekend, again, virtually, as she can attest to. So I wanted to draw us back to that impact and reach and help, because that's the purpose, isn't it, of what we're doing. All of us on this call are trying to do collectively. So I hope that helps.
Exactly. It does indeed. They're very powerful. Thank you for those. I'll ask one last time if there's hands up for any questions, and whilst I'm doing that, Mike, Mr. Hall, your hand has shot up.
Hi there. Thank you very much. It's really, really great hearing your sound and the passion that you've got there. Really, really is. Just really want to know, what is your 5-year plan?
Would you like me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Amy and James?
What's the goal? It's about the big goal, you know, because there's a lot of passion.
Yeah, I mean, as a charity, our 5-year plan has always been about reaching and helping more people and working towards the target of intending to double the number of people that we reach. So, of course, in doing that, the key factors have been about putting digital first, and that's been the critical thing. So that's very much been part of what we're trying to do at the moment. Amy is also very much part of that plan, as well as James. So we have, with the help of WCIT, of course, been looking at how best to connect people anytime, any place, any device, with trying to look at how to provide the best possible new website and enable people to find the information that they need before necessarily being connected to the very fantastic quality counsellors and advisors that we have on the helpline. Often people will have a range of matters and worries that they have, and sometimes that's helped just by information, but it's also about providing different channels of help. But yeah, I mean, put simply, that 5-year strategy is about reaching and helping more people, and at the centre of that, it's to go digital first. Also, we realise that we need to look at how we use and recruit more volunteers to help us do the work that we do. We have fantastic volunteers, which Amy can talk more about, whom we train very intensively to help support us by providing helpline support, one-to-one chat support, and in the office as well. And again, we want to be able to do that regionally. And I think the pandemic has shown us the need for us to think carefully about how we can help recruit volunteers to help us do that. Hence, again, that forethought being on digital transformation and work to help us do that. So I hope that helps paint some of the picture. as to what our 5-year plan is. And Amy, I don't know whether you'd like to come in on that, providing the online community help and support work.
Yeah, so as Annette said, although I'm not sure if I can necessarily follow as thoroughly and impassioned as you, Annette,
Yes,
around the organisational strategies, but yeah, in essence, obviously every strategy has to be a target, but the only way that a target can be useful is if it puts people at the lead, and that is huge. That is the bone actually of who we are as an organization. Like, we were set up by two sisters because they saw a need, and we've never lost sight of that being the reason why we exist. And so we're ensuring that we hold on to that, which in this current climate is not easy to do, and that we're ensuring that everything we do, it's always our service users and our beneficiaries who are put at the lead. So we have an advisory group with family members and those with lived experience. And it slows things down. Yes, it does. But does it slow things down for all the right reasons? 100%. Ensuring that these people, because they're part of it, they're the reason why we exist, is to serve them. And so they deserve the space at the table to tell us what to do better. So this online advisory group, which is held every few weeks, depending on people's availability of the advisory group, we'll go to them with questions about any of the digital transformations that we want to do. We'll work with them. We'll ask them what they want. We'll chuck our own prejudices in the bin, such as forum, no forum. We were like, well, is this a little bit too 1990s? No, that's what they want, and it's being utilised and it's being designed with them. We're putting them at the lead. Does that mean it takes an extra month or two? Yes, it does. Is it worth it? 100%. So a big backbone of our strategy is always putting those with lived experience and our beneficiaries in the lead of any decision that we do, and trying to ensure that we consult every single group that we can, whether it's those with lived experience of gang issues, whether it's those with lived experience of being a young runaway, whether it's families who have a loved one who was missing but has now been found dead. Like, whoever you are, wherever you are on this journey, whatever part of this group or club you're in, we want to hear with you and we want to work with you to ensure that we give you the best service, because otherwise there's no point any of us being here. And a huge part of that, as Annette said, is ensuring that our digital offering is effective. We've been working flat out on getting the website as great as it can be. Websites can be really overlooked, but that's going to be the big base of our digital community. That's how we're able to reach so many different people, to ensure that it's fully accessible. And ideally, it's going to have the same voice that, not literally mine. I'm doing everything I can to make sure my face is not all over the new website. The current one has way too many of my pictures on it. But that effectively, if you come through to it, it's as if you're calling our helpline, but without actually calling them. And then if you don't get everything you need, then you can come through to us, or you can come through to us better informed about what you want from us, giving you the power to make those decisions. So it's kind of massively fleshing out our strategy.
Thank you very much for that. So I've got one eye on the time, so I'm going to. Sean's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to let him ask one last question, and then I'm afraid we're going to have to move on to the other panel business. So, Sean, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jason. I could ask quite a few questions actually, but as I've only got one, I want to state before I ask a question though, it's obvious, how passionate you are about this, about what you do. And obviously, I think we can all see as well, what value this brings to families around the UK that do have ones that go missing. So, and I guess just going back to this initiative, Find Safe, the numbers, Westminster, has it met your expectations in that respect? Is it something that you were looking for, that sort of numbers? I guess it was very much for you like a pilot in that instance, wasn't it? And so is it something that you feel actually this is great, this has given us what we need, so we can build upon that now and look to incorporate all these other organisations around the UK as well?
The aims was to prove the concept. That was one of the aims, and there's no doubt that it does work, and it doesn't impose any great burdens on anybody, and it can work extremely cheaply. In terms of the performance of it, in terms of the numbers that it achieved, during the initial prototyping stuff that I did in 2016 or so, using Excel and using some data that Chain sent me, some 5 years worth of data. Out of the back of that, I was able to estimate that we would have about 4 or 5 matches, new matches per month. Well, we actually ended up with about not quite 4. And so that wasn't too bad. And then that's new matches. But that's ignoring the 50 that happened on the first day, in which case we would have exceeded the expectation. And then when it came to the actions and what was actually done by the outreach workers, we were hoping for between 20 and 40 different actions, but actually we had 17. And the reasons for that are interesting. Basically, there weren't that. What tends to happen is, and it's fairly obvious, is that people are they're lost, so they go missing, and then we then create a record on Chain. But between the time that the person is marked missing and an outreach worker getting round to seeing them again, because sometimes they don't see them for weeks, but they are nevertheless found by other means. So they come off the database, and therefore the outreach worker doesn't have the opportunity, if you like, to increase the score of actions done. So 17 was pretty close to 20, so I'm not too concerned about that. It'll be interesting to see what the mayor's people say with the monitoring and evaluation report we sent last week, which spells it all out and is dead straight. I'm not one to dress up figures, so it'll be interesting to see what they say. But I do believe that even though the numbers are small, it's so cheap to run, and once people have implemented, once the informed database that's got 170 different customers, once they implement it as an option that those customers can each enable, then that's huge. It could scale up very quickly. But as I say, we've also got to scale up on the searcher side, which is perhaps not quite so straightforward. So in a way, why wouldn't you do it? Because it's so cheap and so easy, doesn't involve a great burden on anybody. So it just needs to get done. That's my answer.
Right. Thank you, James. Thank you, Amy-Kathleen. Thank you, Annette. Thank you all of the team there at Missing People, and best of luck with your ventures going forward. We'll look forward to hearing about that growth in those connections and widening that technical network. That's the exciting future for you, I think. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks very much to you all. We look forward to reporting back, which is my job. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Bye-bye.